we'll leave that alone for now. We may actually, you know what?
Let's just say
went to him.
Let's just say if you wanna hear about for now in the podcast, me deep throating a fruit by the foot, wait till the end of this podcast. If you want to see me deep throating a fruit by the foot, then check out the video when I put it up on Friday. Let's just say it's interesting.
All right, and welcome to another episode of Game Wild. It is our 8th episode, I believe. I can count up to 8, so that's awesome. And here we are. Today is going to be a different type of podcast than normal. We're not doing any of the little segments that we normally do. We're going to take all of the time today to talk about what we experienced yesterday, which was Saturday for when we're recording this. You'll be hearing it on Monday morning, hopefully.
One might say this is a special edition podcast.
We could probably do that, an SE edition of Game Wild, PAX East edition, where we decided to go to PAX East for a day for the first time and see what it was like and experience it. And I have to tell you, to start off,
best decision ever.
Wow. Well,
yes.
Well, I think the decision would have been to get more days, but quite honestly, I think we made a good decision to start off at one day to kind of experience it, understand what we were getting ourselves into, because to be honest with you, it was very overwhelming.
Oh yeah.
Not just as a person who does podcasting and does video game streaming, but just as like a fan of gaming in general. It's just so big, and it's probably dwarfed by like an E3, but just that type of situation was just amazing to go through. And before we get really into it, obviously we just want to thank everyone for jumping on the podcast once again. If you haven't already, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast, a good review if possible on all podcast apps that you're listening to us on.
It's possible. You better freaking do it. Just do it.
And that's gonna happen on places like Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can do it on the Apple Podcast app as well, and all other podcast apps that you may be listening to us on right now. So, to jump in. If you're following us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you'll see that we did a bunch of posts yesterday, a bunch of posts this morning as we were kind of gathering our thoughts on what transpired yesterday. So if you want to catch a lot of that stuff, please check out our social media if you haven't already.
And honestly, guys, there's going to be a ton of stuff like throughout the... I know me personally, like I'm catching up from going to PAX, so I'm going to be posting pictures throughout the week of content, stuff that we did throughout the week. And personally, on my YouTube channel on Friday, I will be releasing sort of a video on my own thoughts with PAX, and also some video clips of us running around like idiots inside trying to find everything. So it's going to be a fun week.
Yep. And if you're watching our YouTube channel, we will be posting short videos and pictures as we're talking about this. They won't have any sound, obviously, if we are showing a video, because we're going to be talking over it. But just to show you what we experienced, because I did, and I know SJW did too, take some videos of what we experienced last night at the last panel event that we had.
Yep.
So we'll be talking about that, including some other things that we saw. So
and
I
did,
guess
in my case did.
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff.
And that will be going up on his YouTube channel and our YouTube channel as well, because we were able to get him into a competition, and we'll leave that alone for now. We may actually, you know what?
Let's just say
went to him.
Let's just say if you wanna hear about for now in the podcast, me deep throating a fruit by the foot, wait till the end of this podcast. If you want to see me deep throating a fruit by the foot, then check out the video when I put it up on Friday. Let's just say it's interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, and I got a free game out of it. So
I didn't want to do spoiler alert on that, but because I do want to build some type of mystery behind it.
Well, the mystery is why. Why would SJW decide to deep-throat a root by the foot?
You kind of gave it up by like, hey, I got a free video game out of it.
Yeah, well, I gotta let people know why I sold my body, Joe.
But anyways, and how he was able to get it was thanks to me.
He's got my back.
Trying to put the assist in to get him in, because quite frankly, the people who are choosing the participants weren't really sure how they were going to do it, and they were trying to do it all by like who raised their hand first. So I figured we had to
jump up and down and wave and
be a little different, because one guy did stand up and he was like, I'm the only person who stood up, and she's like, okay, you can come. And then I was basically taking my finger and pointing over his head. Basically,
we gotta bring signs next time, so when people ask for
pick
volunteers,
him for a quest.
we gotta raise the sign that's like pick me. If we bring a pick me sign, I guarantee we'll always get picked.
Oh, absolutely. So let's go over first impressions. SJW, you're the one who decided to do this. You're the one who said, hey, I think this is a good idea. So why don't you start off? What were your first impressions of PAX East as we walked into the main convention area?
So I've talked to you about this before, that I wish that you could see what these are like too, but in years past, we'll say, I've been to different raves like EDC and stuff in Vegas, and those are obviously a sight to behold. But when I walked into PAX, obviously people go to a rave because they want to party and dance and listen to music, get hammered, stuff like that. PAX was a completely sober experience, but it was, equally as good as going to something like EDC. And when I walked in, I got that same feeling, because I'm looking at the whole, the floor. And just everything's like lights and blinking and sounds and the sounds. The thing about the sounds is that they're all nostalgic sounds, and you can't go wrong with all nostalgic sounds. You got Mario playing in the background, Street Fighter, all these sounds that everybody knows. The Final Fantasy like theme music, like Victory Fanfare and stuff, that's like just playing over and over again, and it just never gets old, because you're just like, this is great, this is like heaven. So first impressions was nostalgic as all hell, which was amazing, and just a lot of pretty lights and things to look at that basically, your wallet might be hurting if you go to one of these things. I'm not gonna lie, you're gonna want to buy damn near everything, but awesome first impressions, literally the second that I walked through the door. So what about you, Joe?
Yeah, so, I mean, you're right on the nostalgia part. There were a bunch of retro games, which we are going to be talking about, a few retro games that we saw. But you're right. I mean, you could definitely get yourself lost. There were a lot of vendors there. I did end up purchasing a small little trinket, because I was just like, you know what? I want to get something. And this was only $5, so I decided to get it. It was pretty cool, so. But there was a lot of swag out there. I think next year we're going to be a little bit more aggressive on how we get the swag. We were just very overwhelmed by everything, taking it all in. So we didn't get the opportunity to get to as much as we wanted to. So next year we're definitely going to try to go for more time. I think we're going to try to see if we can do 4 days, but realistically 2 to 3 is probably what's going to happen.
We're doing 4, Joe. We're doing 4.
We will try to do 4. But I think for now we've come to a conclusion that it's definitely going to be something that we're going to do again next year, and be more prepared for what's going to happen. And as we grow the community, and as we grow with the people that we did speak to and hand out cards to, hopefully we can bring it to the next level for next year. And we were talking about one of the panels that we went to, and just like looked at each other and said, hey, this panel is turning this podcast that we went and saw record was going on a 3-year anniversary. So, in 3 years, if we're at PAX East and we're doing this, it's going to be pretty cool. And, that's
we will be doing that in 3 years, Joe. We will be doing that in 3 years. So, that was one of the cooler things too, as we went throughout the day and went to the different panels, Joe, is, and I think I mentioned this to you already, like, everybody there had that same mindset of like, oh my God, like, how are we even doing this right now? Like, everybody's just here to like play video games, and now you can actually make a living off of, playing video games and doing what you love. And like you said, one of the panels we went to is actually What's Good Games. This was their 3rd year. and it was their third year doing the podcast, and now they're at PAX. So to be able to see people that were, they started from the bottom, now we here, right? So but to literally see that in effect was pretty freaking awesome. So very overall great experience, and I don't know, there's so much to talk about, dude. We only went one day.
Yeah.
Look how much shit we have to talk about right now. Like, oh my god.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, and I want to be at that point as well at some point. Just being in front of people that care enough to want to come and see you and hang out with you. And I have to tell you, through all the panels that we went to, the nicest thing about it is that everyone seemed to be genuine and open and not throwing a bunch of BS at you. And trust me, it's difficult.
The actual panelists he's talking about too. Like,
the panelists. Yeah, I'm sorry. And it's just like, you want to make sure that these people are like legit, and it's tough because so many people are crowding them, but we were able to talk to a couple of them and get some FaceTime with them, and they were very open about it. They didn't like scoff at us when we gave them the card, and they understood that they were at that place at one point in their life, and I'm sure and I'm hoping that what they take from that is, hey, if we can help other people grow, we're growing all together. And I think that was the biggest takeaway. As far as the show floor goes and what was there, I was just overwhelmed. I mean, there was just so many people, so many booths. We missed so many booths just because we were just trying to take everything in. And I'm telling you, next year we'll be poised to be able to hit all the players that are there that we want to.
Don't let Joe lie, everybody. He's really only disappointed that he didn't get a Borderlands bag. That's
true.
He didn't care about any other booths there. It was only the Borderlands bag.
Yeah, # feels bad, man. But maybe next year we'll be getting another bag. Who knows what bag that
we got a Geico bag. They're giving those
I didn't
out
really
like
want to
candy.
mention that on the site because I don't want to give Geico any type of stuff. They should be paying for any any words.
Geico, hey Geico, give us a call, all right?
Yeah, anyways. So yeah, I was overwhelmed, but as the day went on, I kind of felt it out and understood what we were going to do. And, let me just go through a couple of things that we were able to get. So the first thing that was because of Rob, actually, he really wanted a pin for his girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
And SJW, unfortunately, could not get his QR code open in time because he has poor cell service. But this Animal Crossing pin, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm putting it up there. If you have a Nintendo account and you opened up your account on your phone and pulled out a QR code, you were able to get one of these pins. It is a limited pin. It was only done for PAX East from what I understood. So this is going to be a rare bird, hopefully, at some point in time, and I own one of them, which is nice.
Okay, hold on. I want to show off my cool pins, Joe. Don't take all the glamour and glory here, okay? I got cool pins too, okay, bro? Well, you got...
Okay.
Wait, did you get the What's Good Games one? No, only I got that one?
No, you got that one because I think you were...
It was one of my deep-throated rewards.
You participated in the event.
So this is the What's Good Games pin that I got.
Yeah.
And those are the three. You turn upside down. Those are the three tricks from the thing. But
soon to be a fourth.
Yeah, and I guess they had another one. And dude, pennies were like a currency there. Like you literally would like trade things. Like hey, you want this video game? I'll trade you it for this pin. Like it's insane how much people love pins there. There's people walking around with them all over their hats, all over their lanyards and stuff. So pins are a thing, and they are here to stay, folks.
Yeah, and who knows if we get traction this year with the
Here's
podcast. We may be we're gonna go over that one. So
is this one? Which one? Okay, we'll save this one.
Yeah.
Nobody saw that. If you're listening, then you really didn't see it. So that's fine.
This has been edited for your
for your convenience.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, I think the biggest situation that we have going on with that is pins galore. We may be making pins for next year, depending on the growth of this podcast and where we're at, and if we have people that would be interested in grabbing them. And so we were lucky enough to sneak into the Kickstarter lounge at the end of the night, and we were able to grab a Kickstarter pin that was just hanging out. So we both grabbed these Kickstarter pins. And then we took some pictures in front of the Guild War 2 booth that you could probably see on our pages as well. So we got a cool Guild War pin, as you can see here. And then finally, there's a company that does server hosting, which, once again, I'll be interested in looking and seeing what they offer. As we grow, we may want to be interested in doing something like this, but this was another pin that we got for just wearing their lanyard, basically. So that was it. Outside of the one that SJW allegedly showed everyone, we're going to be talking about that later. But it was a cool experience, and I was glad that we were interacting with a lot of indie gamers, because that's where people like us are going to probably be able to make a little bit of headway, is by streaming these games that may not be mainstream, but pick up some type of traction and then go from there. So I guess what I'll do is I'll start with the one that I was super interested in when I ran into it. So I don't know if you were big into arcade games back in the day, but there was a place called DG's Arcade in Warwick, Rhode Island, and I went there probably once a month on a Saturday with $5 in my pocket, and just probably could spend a full afternoon. I could probably make $5 reach 3 hours probably. That was my arcade style, between 2 to 3 hours on $5, not too bad. So one of my favorite games was called WrestleFest. It was a wrestling game that had featured a lot of the WWF at the time, now WWE, wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Mr. Perfect, stuff like that. And we saw this booth, and they're creating a game called Retromania Wrestling. It's going to be on the Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC.
It looked pretty fun, to be honest. That thing looked awesome.
It's a 2D wrestler from the old school wrestling, like back in the day, sprites and stuff like that. They do not have any licensing with the WWE, but they do have some old school wrestlers from the NWA and ECW world. So there was, the Road Warriors are on it, Hawk and Animal, probably the two biggest ones. Tommy Dreamer's in it as well. And then luckily enough, we were able to meet the Blue Meanie, who was part of the BWO, and he was there. And if you check out my Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, you'll be able to see a picture with him and I, and basically it looks a lot of fun. We got to play it a little bit. It wasn't like super alpha mode.
It didn't really work 100%. I'm not gonna lie.
No, it didn't. But I can tell you that the feel for what I did get to play was exactly like WrestleFest back in the early '90s, late.
Now
80s
here's my question for you. What do you think on? Because I don't necessarily think wrestling games have ever been huge. I mean, there's definitely a decent following to buy, like, the WWE games and stuff like that. But as far as those 2D retro wrestling games, I mean, how much of a chance do you think that actually has to really take off? I mean, do you think there's enough people that are going to be interested in that for that to be successful?
Well, I mean, I think there's a bit of nostalgia. So you have the nostalgia factor, which is somebody like me having it. 2 is going to be what type of names are they going to be able to bring to the table to wrestle as. I think that also helps, and having some of the old school wrestlers will help. Like right now, really, when you look at the old school wrestlers, you're looking at basically the Road Warriors, which is Hawk and Animal. I don't consider somebody like Tommy Dreamer old school because he's still in the mix. Blue Meanie, stuff like that. Colt Cabana's in there as well.
Colt Cabana was in there. Yep, yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just. And there are other wrestlers coming, so it's going to be interesting to see who they pick up as time goes on. And the coolest thing about a game like this is just like in the retro day, what you got was what you got. With this game, they can do so much more. They can expand to other wrestlers. If the game does build traction, who knows, maybe they do work with the WWE and get some names to come through, or at least be able to license older wrestlers that might not wrestle anymore, because I think that's probably where it's at. If you can get wrestlers who don't wrestle anymore, or unfortunately have maybe passed on to be in this game, you're you're like you're like blowing this game up. Like if you get like a Mr. Perfect, people like that, those are the types of things. The Ultimate Warrior, those are the types of guys that will really bring, I wouldn't say legitimacy, because the game's going to be legit no matter what, because from what I played, like I said, I felt like it was WrestleFest again. So
well, something I actually want to bring up too with that whole, because that was in the same area as this other thing, I think too. There was people there that were actually they were making new Nintendo Entertainment System games, so NES games.
Yep.
They were actually making them on. So I'm talking on the cartridges themselves.
Yep.
So they had a new version of an NES system with the cartridge, brand new game. I think that has huge potential to take off. Yep. There you go. Right there.
Retrotainment. Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's obviously backwards when I put it up here.
Yeah, it's cool.
but basically, it's retrotainment games, and they were showing off a game called Haunted, which was a 2D side scroller.
I think it's a great idea. Huge.
That
idea.
you can get now on the NES as a physical cartridge, the new NES, the Nintendo Switch, Steam, and Xbox One. It looks like.
Now here's my thing. So. What do you think it would drive down prices of, like, how old gaming systems that work well, they go for big money because they're like, vintage. Do you think those systems will go down in price a bit if people know that they're basically just getting recreated and like they're completely playable? Like if you can play an old NES game in a new NES system, like why does the vintage one matter at that point?
Just like
other
why
than collectors, I guess.
Original, but that's what I'm saying. Most people are doing it for collecting. You know what I mean? So it's just like saying, all right, let me talk to you about comic books for a second. So I was an avid comic book collector back in the day, and I have some pretty cool comic books. But the one thing that I always wanted were to get some of the cooler or like old school comics, and well, I just don't have the money for that. But they created these things called Marvel Milestones, and it was a reprint of the milestones in Marvel history. So, for example, as you may know, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, and I've collected a majority of the Marvel milestone comic books that feature Spider-Man or feature his villains and things like that. And so I have Amazing Fantasies 15, for example, which is the first, the first basic appearance of Spider-Man, and then I have a couple of other ones, including the first appearance of the Punisher, which was actually in a Spider-Man comic book in which the Jackal hires the Punisher to assassinate Spider-Man. So it's stuff like that, but they're reprints, okay? They're reprints.
They're still worth money?
They're definitely still worth money, but the problem is they're not worth what you would have if you had the original.
Yeah, so I guess no matter what, the original's always going to be worth a lot more. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's my point, is that so people will try to get the original because it's collectible and it's rare. Where a reprint,
and there's only a limited amount
has
of them too. Yeah,
has some collectible nature to it, but is still a reprint.
Yep.
And was more accessible to people. So that's why I think it's not going to harm. I mean, the secondary market as much.
No, I think you're probably right at the grand scheme of things. So I don't know, just a random thought that popped into my head. Orb. Well, you want to get into Orb? I'm kind of excited to talk to Orb.
Yeah. So since you already spoiled it, you might as well show it again. We saw a booth that was very, like, I don't know, similar to like a Rocket League style game.
Yep.
I went on Steam and checked it out. And it's called Orb Rivals. It's a sci-fi football and jet-powered hockey collide in the intergalactic sport of Orb. So we were lucky enough to play the game. It's 3-on-3. It was myself, SJW, and Rob. Unfortunately, we lost.
Yeah, we did lose.
But we did play a good game, I felt like, as we were learning. And it's supposed to be released this year around Q3 of 2020.
Yes, on Steam.
We were able to speak to the developer directly because one person was the person who coded all of this, from what I was told.
Well, it's a husband and wife team is the company itself, and I guess the husband does the coding for the game. And I mean, it looks great considering he coded the whole thing himself. I think it looks fantastic. And
Right.
the thing, oh man, it was really, really, really fun. And it's basically just a new spin on Rocket League. So remember how people were saying, Joe, that it seemed like another game that was made?
Yeah.
So I looked that up real quick. There's something called Mad Machines.
Okay.
So Mad Machines, it literally, like the article I'm reading on PC Gamer says Mad Machines looks like Rocket League with massive armored robots instead of cars, right? Looking at it, it does look similar. Looks very, very similar. I'm sure there's differences, with a lot of different things. However, I haven't heard anything about this until now, until I actually had to look for it. So I don't know how popular this is, if it's popular at all, if it even released actually. I didn't check Steam to see if it's on Steam, but
yeah, and I'm looking at Mad Machines right now on Steam, and it looks very different.
How much is it?
I mean, it's $10,
and it doesn't look like the same game.
Oh, it's totally. I mean, it's got similar pieces to it for sure, but it looks more like a battle royale robot game than an actual sport like the Orb game.
Yeah. And with Orb, I don't know. With Orb, you can actually tackle them too, which I think is the difference, because it looks like with Mad Machines, it's kind of like Rocket League. You don't ever have really possession of the ball. You're just dribbling the ball, and that's what this what is it? Mad Machines. That's what it looks like they're doing with that. In Orbs, you actually have possession of the ball, and if somebody goes and tackles you, it will actually it will make you fumble the ball, so to speak, and then somebody else can pick it up and pass it. So it has a much more football-like feel in that sense, which is what I love.
And I mean, to be honest with you, looking into Mad Machines more and more, it's a third-person game that's a beat and eat enemies as long as possible to stay as the king. Made of blocks, endless running, drop in, drop out, online multiplayer up to 10 people per match, dedicated servers, and free-for-all PvP. So
there's no goals?
It's PvP. No, it's no. It's just to stay the king by defeating as many guys as possible.
Oh, so that's more of like a King of the Hill type thing. So
exactly. So not even close to the idea. So
nope, that's different.
And the nice thing too that I saw in regards to Orb Rivals that's on their Steam page is that it's not just robots. So when we first looked at it and we played it, it was just robots. It was basically 6 robots that you could choose from. They're saying aliens as well, so we could be looking at more customizable characters.
Oh, they'll probably have everything, yeah.
Which will be big because that's kind of what keeps you.
Well, yeah, because then you can put then you can have some deal with Blizzard and be like, hey, let's put Diablo in the game real quick, and you can use him as a playable character. So that could go pretty far. But I mean, overall, I love this game. I love Rocket League. I'm in Platinum in Rocket League right now, and I kind of like that game, and I want to get better at it. And this game is definitely something that I would love to play. I love competitive, fast-paced games like Rocket League, Halo, stuff like that. And this is right up that alley. So very, very excited to have this come out. But wait, there's more. What did we get access to, Joe? You want to tell them?
So yeah, sure. So as we played the game, we were able to get access to the pre-alpha.
The pre-alpha, the pre-alpha.
We do have codes to log in and play that, and I think
it's a week and a half.
One of the big things that we're going to do is reach out to them and see if we can get a couple of extra pre-alpha codes and give them out to some of our listeners, because I think it will be a huge opportunity for us to
we
play
got
with
you
our
guys.
listeners.
We got you guys. All right.
So we can't guarantee that will happen, but we are going to be in conversations with them to try to see if we can get a few more codes out there and give them to some of our listeners, especially the ones that have been with us from the beginning.
Always looking out. Always looking out. We got it. So, yeah, we'll hit them up. That actually is a great idea. That's the first time I'm hearing you say that, too, so that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, so I think that will help us grow the community. They were super pumped about us trying to stream this stuff and basically give them some love, because it is a small family business basically, so it's important to them that they can grow their community just as much. And they do have a Discord and stuff, and we will be sharing pictures of the pin on our social media with all their information and tagging them on it as well to get the word out about this game, because it does look like it will be a lot of fun. And being able to be there for the pre-alpha and other things that may be coming out will be huge. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to play this more and streaming it for all of you, and hopefully getting some more codes for you guys. So not only can you watch us stream it, but maybe you can play as our third as we stream it.
Yeah,
because I
definitely.
think
Play
we're
along
gonna
with us.
be, you know, the one thing that SJW and I were talking about is that we haven't really done a lot of co-streaming lately. And we need to get back into that to help build our brands. So we're going to try to work out Fridays again and start co-streaming. And I think this is probably one of the big ones that we'll be able to co-stream.
Oh,
so
hell yeah.
If we can get a third in on our co-stream, that would be pretty big. So, and I know Rob got a key as well because he was there with us and he played as our third. So I know Rob jumps on the channel once in a while.
Rob unfortunately does not have a PC. He is of a inferior race, so.
Oh man,
I'm trying to. It's like my roommate. So my roommate, I don't know if anybody knows that's listening right now, but Rocket League is getting essentially discontinued for Mac. I don't know if that's the exact word, but as of March 1st, you can no longer play online with Rocket League, which I think is even more ridiculous. So technically, if you purchase the game, this is like their loophole probably, so that they don't have to refund anything. If you purchase the game, you can play it. You just can't play online. And and there's like no point at that. Like it's all multiplayer competitive.
So yeah, I think I did not know that. I thought Rob had a PC. So maybe you should talk to Rob about getting that code, and at least we'll have one extra code if he's not going to be able to play, and then we can give that out to somebody who's been with us from the start.
All right, but let's get into D&D because we have a lot more to talk about, and we only have so much time.
Right, we need one of those people from the panels who hold up the time.
Yeah,
like people
5 minutes time. And dude, and this is, and again, everybody, I want everybody listening. Like this was one day. This is one day, and I could talk about this for hours, and it was just so much fun. So with that said, what was very fun for me, which was unexpected, was D&D. Joe at first wasn't too crazy about it either. It was actually one of my other friends that was there, Kevin, who decided that he wanted to go to the D&D. It was made by AC Inc. So Acquisitions Incorporated. So if anybody listening knows what that is, it's basically a company that took D&D to the public, to events like PAX. They do a Dungeons and Dragons session on stage, and they have some animations behind them to kind of support what's happening throughout the game. So it's pretty cool. And honestly,
and if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see a little bit of it as we took some video
Oh yes,
of it,
we did take some video of it. There was what was the wrestler's name? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, so Xavier Woods was at the panel as one of the players, as he's actually been there for some time. Xavier Woods, by the way, also stopped by the Retromania booth and played some of it and was really excited about it as well because he's a huge gamer
very big
as
gamer,
well.
apparently.
And so he was there, and he actually dressed up as Powdered Toast Man. I don't know if you guys know who Powdered Toast Man was. A lot.
I did not.
Probably don't.
I don't know. I guess that's the thing. I did not know. I literally thought the first thing I thought, because I'm more of a card game guy, was freaking Disguised Toast on Hearthstone. I don't even know. Do you know who Disguised Toast is, Joe?
I don't know.
No, so yeah, so like, see, we're on totally two different like toast level playing fields here. So, but he was hysterical. He was very funny the whole time.
So he dressed up as Powdered Toast Man, and actually, funny enough, one of my friends who I was sending text to about it actually said, "Oh, did you know that he was actually Powdered Toast Man?" And if you can see right there, that he came out dressed up like that, and that's one of the girls from the ambassador panel. So that's what he was dressed up like. He actually took his the Powdered Toast Man face off though, so you could see his face. But yeah, that was Xavier Rhodes.
And another person that was actually on the D&D thing was Morgan Webb. So that's a throwback. I don't know if anybody anybody listening remembers.
Oh, Xavier Woods, by the way. I'm sorry, I kept saying Rhodes. It's Xavier
Woods.
Sorry.
And if anybody listening remembers G4 Tech TV, which honestly, back when I was I think 16 or 15 or something, that started coming out. That was amazing back then, because that was when video games started to pick up and people started being like, wow, this is a thing, competitive gaming and stuff. So she was a part of the crew there, and basically they just go through a D&D session, that everybody plays D&D like they normally would, or like you would in your basement with your friends or whatever. And it was absolutely hysterical. I did not expect to laugh nearly as hard as I did. I was laughing so hard to the point where not only was I crying, but I think I was about to puke at one point because my stomach hurt so much. So,
God.
that was it was the dragon with the eyeball grapple part. Where the dragon shit itself. So, so it was. If you can gather from just that statement alone, it was definitely a fun experience. So I highly recommend, if you have any interest in Dungeons and Dragons, to check out Acquisitions Incorporated. I'm sure you can find previous sessions and stuff that they've done online on Twitch. I'm pretty sure they live streamed while we were there as well, and highly recommend it. They also used a D&D Beyond app, which looked pretty good. It's basically an app to track your character. It just tracks hit points, stats, stuff like that. So that makes it a little bit easier instead of having to, a lot easier, I should say, than having to track everything with pencil and paper. So quick shout out to Ack Inc.
And it's funny, so we were thinking about it, and it's like, wow, maybe we should start doing this. So depending on who we get together and what we can kind of put together, we may do a couple of Twitch streams together as D&D, and we kind of probably won't all be together, but if we can get everyone kind of on the same stream basically and screen, we could probably do like a D&D style setup, especially now that you can kind of set up your own character.
The possibilities are endless.
The possibilities are endless. But yeah, I mean, I'm on the website right now. You need to sign into a D&D Beyond account in order to save characters, but you can just sign in, create an account, and you can create a standard character, which is create a character by making choices using a step-by-step approach. And there is help text for beginners, a quick build, which is create a first level character using recommended starting options. And then if you want to be really, really, really on the wild side, you can create a randomize, which is create a character of any level with random stats by setting parameters.
It's like at what point does D&D no longer become like a tabletop like play in person game and actually just become on the computer like everything else?
Right, and everyone's still trying to do exactly what they were all there. They were trying to do a game night situation, so it was definitely nostalgic in regards to, if you did play tabletop games, they were all there outside of a giant screen behind them, and they're animating some of the things that did happen.
Not too much, by the way. It was like just a scene, and they would just kind of chill up there for a little bit.
Which, quite honestly, if you see my green screen behind here, if we did do it, we would be streaming it on Twitch. So I would probably use my green screen as what they did by creating some backdrops and things like that, and creating that. And I would obviously have to be the dungeon master if that was the case at that point, and I'd just have to torture SJW the whole time as the dungeon master. Torture.
Oh God! Suddenly, I don't want to play Dungeons and Dragons with you, Joe. I don't feel like this is going to be fun at all.
Hey, listen, I trust me. I want to create a paladin. So
Kevin's, I think, the dungeon master in his thing. So he knows a thing or two about being a dungeon master.
Yeah, and I mean, we can, and to be honest with you, even if I'm not the dungeon master, I could probably, if we do the streaming setup and we can get everyone on camera at least, we could possibly do it. And if we can't get someone on camera, maybe we find someone who can do some artwork for us, and just do some artwork of whatever their character is, just like they had, and put them in that place. So that would be pretty cool.
Okay.
But yeah, I
so
was okay with it.
Well, I'm gonna get into the Final Fantasy VII Remake now, just real quick to touch on it. Again, just trying to expedite things, Joe. I feel bad. I don't want to like interrupt you and just completely curve this conversation.
Well, dude, you just did.
We have no time, man. There's not enough time in the world. You know, and I have so much to edit.
We're trying to get to.
God.
We have a lot to do. Okay, we're at the 38-minute mark.
All right. We'll get
based
there.
on what I see, it's probably not the 38-minute mark after it's edited. So
well, no, but
all right,
Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII.
Go ahead.
All right.
Tell them about the disappointment you had with Final Fantasy VII.
There was a little bit of a disappointment, but it was a little bit of a cool part too. So the disappointment was, I totally forgot. I actually did see this before I went there, but I just whiffed on it. you did have to go to the booth like ahead of time to grab a ticket to play the demo. So they probably only had like 100, tickets or whatever that they handed out to play this demo. So by the time we were down there, which was actually still towards the beginning, they had like just run out of tickets. I'm pretty sure we were standing next to them while we could have gotten a ticket, but we were standing in line to take the picture. But then by the time we got on the bike and off, then we ended up missing out on the tickets. The bike was, they had Cloud Strife's bike there, and it was a replica, and you could get on it, you could take pictures, so I'll probably throw it up on my Instagram at some point this week. It was pretty freaking cool, and we got with like the designer of the bike, so he said he was the lead design on it, so he knew all the ins and outs. It was $35,000 for styrofoam on top of stainless steel. Was essentially what they paid for it. It doesn't even run. So you could, for 35 grand, you could buy an actual motorcycle. And they just decided, nah, we're gonna put styrofoam on top of stainless steel and make it look cool. So we all took pictures on it. Joe's got a picture he'll probably throw up at some point too for him.
Well, I did post it on my social media.
Oh, you did?
When
okay.
we first did it, so that's already there. And just to be clear, the tickets were out before we.
Oh, they were. Okay, all right.
That's why we decided to.
Okay.
That's why we decided to jump on the bike and instead.
But I'm still equally as excited for Final Fantasy VII Remake when it comes out, which will be a little more than a month now. Soup for that game, so I could go on for a while. So we'll just we'll glaze over that one. I want to get into these two panels that we went to before three technically. So
go for it.
All right. So we went to 3 panels while we were there, all of which were an hour, right? And the first one was building your community, and it was done by PAX Ambassadors, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, they said it was the first year, right?
Yeah, first year for PAX Ambassadors.
First year for PAX Ambassadors. It was Jesse Cox. He's a YouTuber. Christina Ariel Tigner. That's a name. She's Tabletop Games, right? She does Tabletop Games.
Correct. Yeah, she did the tabletops.
And Robin Hunnicky, who is a developer, and Justin Wong, who was Street Fighter Esports Pro, and Sonja. Is it Sonia? It's probably Sonia. Sonia Reed.
Probably Sonia.
Who is also known as OMG It's Firefox on Twitch. She was a streamer representative. All in all, I liked that panel the best out of all of them. I don't know about you. Was that?
I agree too. I think the reason for it was less people were there, and we were able to, even though that was still kind of crowded around them, we were able to talk to 2 of them. We did probably want to get in touch with Sonia as well, but unfortunately we weren't able to. But we did reach out and were able to have a conversation with Jesse and Christina for a short period of time and hand out our cards to them so they could take a look at our podcast and our
Jesse,
our Twitch streams.
So Jesse, I actually just pulled out his YouTube right now. I'll pull it up over here too. So if you guys are watching the YouTube channel, you can see I have his channel up right here. He's got almost 1 million subscribers actually. So he's pretty big on YouTube. He does all gaming stuff. With a lot of weird gaming stuff apparently, and but it looks cool. It looks fun. He was very cool on stage. He was very cool to talk to. He knew a lot about YouTube. He knew what he was talking about. And what impressed me the most, like I know Joe already kind of alluded to their attitude and how honest they were. But on top of them being honest and just down to earth and cool with talking to everybody that was there, they had, what's that word, Joe? What's the word, Joe?
Positivity.
So they all were so on top of positivity. It's not even funny. A lot of posts that I post up, I put hashtag positivity with 3 Y's, as well as Shit Just Works. It's kind of where the name came from. And they were all all about positivity. You got to stay positive, be positive, enforce a positive community. If you're positive and your community is positive, it's just going to breed more positivity, which is going to bring you, one step closer to success. So that resonated with everybody. And it was very cool to hear them all say that and all agree unanimously that that's, what you got to do to really build a good community is stay positive and be positive.
Yeah, and actually, it was across all panels that we went through. Positivity was one of the that were pretty big. That, and obviously being true to yourself was probably one of the other bigger things. Is like you know, a lot of people get into this for a lot of different reasons, and I think being passionate about what you're doing and just being excited about it is really what's going to bring you to the forefront, not looking at numbers. That was another big thing. Don't focus on the numbers. I know that Jesse has a million plus subscribers on YouTube, but I mean, they were basically like, don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about being better than other people, because there's gonna be people that are better than you, and they're gonna be able to go out there and they're gonna be able to make things happen faster than you. But you can't get discouraged. You can't play yourself down by that. You just have to be yourself, do you, work with people within your community and people that you know to try to better yourself and to make headway. You know, and that was probably some of the other bigger things that they came out with, which it makes total sense, because a lot of us have full-time jobs and this isn't our full-time job. And to make this successful, there's a lot of effort that goes into the background that, you know, SJW does most of it, because I have a full-time family that's difficult for me to do a lot of editing.
Wait, it's not a part-time family?
No, it's not a part-time family. No.
You know what's shitty? Some people do have part-time families. That's not cool.
I know. So it's one of those things where basically this podcast wouldn't even be possible without his hard work after behind the scenes.
Oh,
so
Joe.
we always thank him for
you're hitting me in the feels, man. Oh, you're hitting me in the feels right there.
Hashtag positivity. So
yeah,
but yeah, that was it.
And you know what I want to say too? I totally get caught up in numbers and stuff sometimes, and I catch myself, and I'm like, nah.
I think everyone does.
Yeah, it's you know. So just, you know, keep an eye on that. If you guys are trying to do something similar, if anybody listens trying to do something similar, F the numbers. You don't need them. Stop looking at them. Go do something. Go do something cool. That was another thing that one of the so the second one we'll use that as a segue. The segue into the second one is one of the things they said was just do it. And the guy was like explaining, he had this long drawn out thing of you know, how to contact other companies and how to market yourself and stuff. And then you could tell he wanted to say it and he was holding it back, and then eventually he's just like, nah, fuck it, just do it. Like, that's what you got to do, is you just got to do it. And it's 100% right. I mean, if you're trying to do something, talking about it and just thinking about the idea is great. Planning it out also equally is great. Everybody says you should have a plan, you should have goals. Plans and goals aren't worth a shit unless you go do something about it. You're never going to hit your goals if you're just sitting around doing nothing, just thinking about it. So that was one thing that resonated with me with the second one, which is really all marketing and how to build relationships with other gaming companies. They had a representative from Square Enix there. So that was pretty cool. He seemed to know what he was doing, and they all talked a lot too about how they kind of their come up, I guess, in the industry, which was pretty cool. It didn't seem like everybody there. I don't know if you got this vibe, Joe, but it felt like a lot of the people at the panels didn't all start in gaming. Like, it's almost like they all didn't feel like that was going to be their career because it like wasn't possible, and then they all ended up, oh, this is how I got my start in gaming, and then they shifted over.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just more like, not that they fell into it, but I think it came down to some factors. Like in the first panel, the woman, Robin, who was the developer, who was kind of the ambassador for the developers, she started off in a AI PhD. She was going for artificial intelligence, and you know, from the undertones of her start, it kind of was like, hey, she started working for a company that, you know, helped create The Sims, so which is a lot of AI stuff. So it's things like that. They just didn't think it was going to be something that they were going to do, and they just kind of fell into it, or something, you know, gave them that path of, hey, let's be in video games. And not that they didn't think they could make a living off of it, but just you know, that wasn't what their first path was going to be, it sounded like.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe I said that a little bit wrong, but it just seemed like you know, it wasn't their first guess. Which is funny. You know, people go to school for like you know, they want to be a lawyer, so they get a legal degree, and then they end up being like something completely different that's unrelated to being a lawyer, you know, and that shit happens all the time.
Sure.
So it's no different in gaming. So you can be that person that ends up making a career out of video games. And that's what I took from the second panel the most. But last but not least, the moment you have all been waiting for, the What's Good podcast, and the What's Good podcast panel. Is that right?
Well, they actually did run the podcast.
They ran the podcast.
If you do listen to the What's Good podcast, I mean, they don't say them by name, but you're gonna find out I think you finished fifth or sixth.
It was
I don't
fifth,
remember.
yeah, and
it was fifth. So when they call out the person who finished fifth, I don't know if they do that or not.
Nah,
but,
they didn't call names.
When they say they didn't take your names, but when they say he finished fifth or whatever, that was him. So.
Yeah, so basically,
and you'll see it on the video that we'll post.
So and actually,
you'll be able to see it live.
So
whatever.
The What's Good podcast games penny thing that I showed you guys with the 3 girls on it.
Mm-hmm.
That was Andrea, Renee, Brittany Braunbacher, and Christine Steimer. So they all do a podcast that you guys can search. It's What's Good Games. You can find it. It's huge. They have tons of reviews. It's great. I've listened to them before as well, and they. This stupid son is doing it again. You didn't even notice that.
No, you're all right.
So anyways, so they do the podcast. They just hired, I guess, their first part-time employee, Rihanna Manuel, who was also there, and she was great as well. But it's cool to see a podcast. We alluded to them in the beginning that this was their 3rd year doing the podcast, right? And
yep.
Now they're at PAX, which is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, and they do Patreon. The biggest thing for us is that we're just trying to get this content out. At some point, if we do grow and we need to put more effort into this podcast, we may need something to kind of help us along the way, like websites, stuff like that. And all this stuff costs money. Everything we do here costs some type of dollar value, whether it's our time, whether it's the equipment that we need to make this podcast better. So, at some point we may consider the options of maybe doing something similar to that to kind of at least, number one, keep commercials and stuff like that off of our podcast. And we may be able to do that by getting support from our viewers like you.
Oh, yeah. So, and which we appreciate the hell out of, by the way. I mean, it was awesome meeting people there. That were interested genuinely in what we had to say in our podcast. I mean, we met a father and his son who we talked to for a while at the D&D thing that they just were really interested in what, just having a conversation with us and going back and forth about video games and where they've come from and stuff like that. And it is awesome meeting every single person that's interested in the podcast, people I've met on my YouTube channel, on Instagram, social media. It's very cool to just actually see a community be built and see so many people having fun and staying positive and and just having a blast playing video games. I mean, that's why I like video games so much, is that we gamers just want to have fun. They just want to and maybe rage quit here and there. But for the most part, we want to have fun. So the event that happened at What's Good Podcast, why I deep-throated a fruit by the foot, is basically, I guess, what did they say? They did that competition. Why? That, like, originally?
No, I think they did a competition the night before.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They did a competition the night before, and so they just felt like that
they were going to do it during the podcast. So I guess they did this prior, and essentially, I'm going to try to verbally explain this to listeners. Hopefully, they can understand and get a good picture here. But
and if not, you'll probably be seeing some of the video.
Yeah, the video will be on Friday. But essentially, I put my hands behind my back, and with the fruit by the foot in my mouth, like I put the big piece. You know how they
at the beginning.
Yeah. And it's all unwrapped, right? So there's no paper on it, and it kind of just hangs down. So you put your head down, and they basically counted down. They had a Mario Kart countdown, which I thought was pretty cool too, and they say go, and you just have to use your mouth to kind of like scoop the fruit by the foot into your mouth. And wow, let me tell you this. I never thought in a million years I would gag deep-throating a fruit by the foot. That I can't say that's an experience that most people will ever have or ever have to have. But it happened because I was like doing really well. I was doing really well. I thought I was doing pretty well.
And you'll see where he faltered.
I failed miserably because you want to know why? There's a strategy. I was talking to somebody. There's a strategy. You got to push it to your cheek.
To your cheek. Exactly. You got to push it to your cheek. Instead, you were trying to take it all the way down your throat and not think about it, which was the weirdest thing I heard. Is like, no, you just have to like. I don't know. It was just,
Dude, there's no good way to
so
phrase
bad.
that. That's why I've just gotten over the fact that I deep throated a foot by the foot and just
Yeah,
I
you
just
gotta
go with it.
chipmunk it.
I just
Chipmunk it.
yeah. So
you didn't chipmunk it.
but basically, it kept falling into the back of my throat to the point where I was trying to eat more and I would just like gag and I couldn't get the fruit by the foot all the way in. So it was a fail for sure. It was epic fail. So, but
well, with that being said,
well, with that being said, it wasn't a complete fail because I don't have the game in here, but it was one of the Need for Speeds. I got a Need for Speed, and I was showing it to my roommate in a pin. So I got a What's Good Games pin. I got a Need for Speed. And it was a fun time. I mean, I got to meet some more people up there on stage, and we didn't end up talking to the What's Good girls afterwards, but
we were trying to rush back to the
we do have the video though.
Found out the booths were closed.
Oh yeah, that kind of sucked. The booths for those of you who do go to PAX, the booths close at 6, right?
6.
Yeah, which not cool, but hey, it is what it is.
10 to 6, basically.
Yeah, that was my one. There you go. There's my one complaint about PAX. My one complaint about PAX is it was not open long enough, but that might only be because we just went one day. So I mean, if we went 4 days, it probably would have been.
I just feel like Saturday should have been the day that they were open till like 7.
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially probably Friday and Saturday, just because it's weekend days, right? So wow. Okay, so we did it. We actually got through everything.
We got through PAX and we got through the podcast because obviously we have a tight schedule. We're recording this on a Sunday. Justin's got to edit it, so it's going to take some time. So once again, we would like to thank everyone who came on this podcast today to listen to it or watch it on YouTube. We will be back at our normal times, as we hopefully will be on our normal times today, but in getting this out. So we thank you all for listening or watching on YouTube. Please don't forget to review us and everything like that, and we will talk to you next week, where we are going to try to do another live stream on Twitch where we will take a Q&A hopefully of other experiences we had at PAX and any other questions that you may have. So please join us next week. We're going to be doing it on Saturday, hopefully between 1 and 2 p.m. And I guess we will see you next time.
Oh yeah, everybody have a great week. Peace out.
Bye.